This one is long now. Okay, this one. Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our final tutorial in Natural Science and Technology Didactics. It's Monday, the 29th of September, and Peter and I are here in the studio to bring to you our final presentation on Natural Science and Technology Didactics. We have come through to our fourth tutorial this evening, and I'm going to present to you Unit 4. I'm going to use a PowerPoint presentation to lead the discussions in looking at quite a controversial section of the curriculum, both for us here, the ADT program, and for schools and the CAPS document. We're looking at Indigenous knowledge and science. Indigenous knowledge and science, and I'm going to take you through a video as an introduction to our discussions. We're going to look at our assignment, and we're going to work towards looking at some details within Indigenous knowledge and science. So with that, I would like to invite you, as you join in watching this video at your leisure later on, once it's put onto Funda, or as you join us this evening from home or from ACLC, to use group chat and to use Q&A and to engage in the discussions and bring up any questions that you might have either now or later. So allow me now to bring up my PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to use to guide you through this evening's tutorial. It's our fourth tutorial in the ADT program of Natural Science and Technology Didactics. And we are looking at science and indigenous knowledge. It is based on Unit 4. My apologies here. Please do take note. It is Unit 4. And I want to welcome you. And as I introduce tonight's presentation, this is what we have in store for us. In this unit, we're going to look at a very short video introduction into Indigenous knowledge and its value and some of the debates around it. We're going to look at a brief summary of the modules so far of our semester. And then we're going to focus on module outcome 4, which also prepares us for the last assignment, assignment 3, which is the fourth assessment for your progressional requirements for this module. And with that, we're going to also feature quite a focused discussion on assessment. We are looking at assessment in the curriculum based on Indigenous knowledge and science. And to that end, we have a couple of activities that's going to engage us in some higher order thinking skills, and it's going to allow us to reflect on this very important aspect of natural science and technology. And then some questions and our conclusion at the end. So to begin with, we're going to watch a 2-minute or so video that's going to take us into the heart of this evening's debate. And with that video, I would like you, on watching it, to remember to raise the volume on your PC or your instrument that you're using. And on watching this, you're welcome to watch it over again. I would like you to engage in a very quick activity to get us thinking about Indigenous knowledge and science. On watching this YouTube link, I would like you to ask or to write down what you agreed with from what you saw, what you disagreed with, and then some questions that you could raise, some questions that you could ask, either as a student or as an interviewer or just as a teacher in preparation. So let's watch the video. I'm going to bring it up. Okay, just give me a moment. Let me get the sound again.
That's fine. Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
The focus of my work is on...
Just going to
You're
start that
working
again.
in Uganda at the moment. What's the main focus of your work at the moment?
The focus of my work is on indigenous knowledge systems to be integrated in research, training and development in African educational systems, from the primary, secondary to tertiary institutions.
And why is this important?
It is important to understand and know your roots, and therefore you have a good foundation to build on your development interventions. If you know yourself well, and also if you respect your own background and knowledge, you can understand also other knowledge systems better and see other systems as an equal partner to your own systems.
Okay, give us an idea about the situation in Uganda at the moment, the situation with youth in Uganda and the level of knowledge and capacity there is amongst the youth.
Young people in Uganda, like young people elsewhere in the world, they are very enthusiastic in learning new things and also learning how to survive, especially getting entrepreneur skills, job creation, science. There are a lot of innovations available in Uganda, and the young people in Uganda are the same as anywhere in the world.
Okay, and why is it important that we have indigenous knowledge? Why does this help in the quest for sustainable development and combating climate change and desertification?
Indigenous knowledge is the system of knowledge which people have lived for centuries. On reaching the level we have now is based on indigenous knowledge of different societies. But some societies overshadow other societies, as it's called globalization, and therefore may not respect or base the development directly on the local systems. Opposite, the education system, based also on modernization theory, whereby everything backward is primitive and not worth studying, and everything that is modern, usually young people look at the Western world as the model of development. Yet, there are so many various models of development on living, which can be put into consideration for development, not just the globalization model.
Okay, let's get back to our PowerPoint and back to the activity that I've asked you to engage in once you have watched this YouTube link. As a starting point in preparing our thoughts around this unit and Indigenous science and technology, I'd like you to ask yourself, what did you agree with from the person who was being interviewed? Did you have any disagreements with what was being said or discussed? And if you had to raise some critical questions, what would they be? And then a very quick look at where we are so far. What have we covered? I'd like you to engage in a self-evaluative activity where you can draw a mind map. If you want to just bullet it or tabulate it, you're welcome to do that. But I'd like you to engage in some reflection on the aspects that you have learned so far of the material that we have covered in this module, around module outcome 1, 2, and 3. If you recall, we started with the discussion forum on understanding natural science and technology, especially as it's outlined for the intermediate phase in the CAPS document. Outcome 2 explored learning and teaching requirements and approaches in exploring natural science in the classroom. We looked at doing science and technology. And we looked at, in particular, the scientific approach and research skills. At the moment, we are very busy in completing our third assignment, whereby we're focusing on applying science and technology in context around the 3 strands in natural science and technology. So just as a brief exercise, I'd like you just to summarize for yourself, what have you covered so far? How much of ground have you covered in preparation of teaching natural science and technology in the intermediate phase? Gathering repertoire, looking at critical decisions, understanding the natural science and technology knowledge and skills that are required in the CAPS. Today we're looking at module outcome 4, the last of our 4 outcomes in meeting the requirements for the natural science and technology didactics module. This outcome focuses on natural science and technology in society, and in particular, it looks at indigenous knowledge and worldview. Now, this is a vast area of study. But remember that we are focusing on grade 4, 5, and 6, more or less 9, 10, and 11-year-olds. So in being able to pitch this question or this module outcome, we must be able to meet the requirement as stipulated in the curriculum at the intermediate phase, while still prodding into the unknown, into a world that is so vast and quite confusing for little intermediate phase learners, yet one that they need to engage in. To this end, our assignment, which is the last of our 4 assignments, is pitched at university students. Here, you as a teacher in preparation is asked to focus your thinking around planning for assessment. Looking at the indigenous knowledge and worldview in assessment. The assignment is weighted at 20% and it's due on the 16th of October. I want to draw your attention to the module outline in Funda that will give you all the fine details, resources that you can use, the rubric that is going to be used to mark this assignment. But just a brief explanation. Here you are asked to plan 3 assessments, 1 each, on the 3 different strands for a grade 4 class. So it is 1 assessment each. Altogether, you will provide 3 assessments on the 3 different strands. And you're going to use specific aim 3 from your CAPS document, which I will show you in a while, to prepare 3 different forms of assessment. One of these must be a test. So of the 3 assessments that you are going to submit, one has to be a test. The others could be a poster or a project, a worksheet, whatever else you would use in a classroom situation to assess learners' knowledge on indigenous knowledge and worldview for grade 4. And here you're going to draw on the CAPS document to extract the relevant concepts and the content for your choice. You need to include the strategy that you would use, the form of assessment, as I have mentioned. One of the forms must be a test. Your resources, any texts, oral or written tasks that you might include, and you must include the rubric or the marking memo that you would subject your assessment to. What would you use to mark that assessment in a classroom situation? You may decide to use your own format to present your work. You're welcome to use a table format or to use Word or a PowerPoint or even a PDF format. Either way, that is left to you. What's important, it must be easily readable, a user-friendly format that you could use again, and it needs to be meaningful and capture what is required in this assessment. I invite you to send any queries or questions that you may have around this assessment if you so wish to. In preparation for that, I just want to draw your attention again to the four strands, of which 3 is expected for this assignment. You may choose to do life and living, or matter and materials, energy and change, or planet Earth and beyond. An assessment each for grade 4, and you choose 3 of these 4 areas in natural science and technology. However, all of these need to focus on indigenous knowledge and science. You may include the technology aspect of it. You must also focus on the mark scheme. I will come to that in a minute or two in terms of how you would mark your assessment. And let's look at what CAPS requires us regarding assessment for natural science and technology. I'd like to bring up the CAPS document at this point so that we can refer to the relevant part of the document that your assignment will be based on, and you can then read it in more detail. This part of the assignment is found on page 65 onward to the end. And on page 65 of the Natural Science and Technology CAPS document for grades 4 to 6, you will find what is required in terms of informal and formal assessment. It gives you a guide as to the area of content to be covered, and it refers to various sections that you can also extract. It talks to the informal assessments or daily assessments that one can plan for. I would prefer for your assignment to be based on formal assessments. It is at this point of the curriculum that marks are allocated, and these marks are given to you for grades 4 to 6. It's important also to study the cognitive demands of the assessment, because each of the assessments are based on certain thinking skills, certain content, and for certain purposes. I want to particularly focus on this table, which you will find on page 67, on the top of page 67. It's a very easy guide that is given to you as a table in order to evaluate how the assessments are designed. Each of the columns show that 50% of natural science and technology involve lower order questions, lower order thinking skills that require stating and naming and labeling and listing and so forth. 35% of the natural science curriculum involves middle order questions that call for explanations, comparisons, designing, planning, and so forth. This assignment, assignment 3, is focused on higher order questions. This forms 15% of the natural science curriculum for grades 4 to 6. Here is the section that includes indigenous knowledge and technology. It involves evaluating, suggesting a reason, interpretation, and so forth. It involves synthesizing information, debating, reasoning, critiquing. So using this table, you are welcome to draw up your 3 assessments, providing for a range of questions accordingly. The rest of this of the CAPS document spells out how many assessments are needed for each term, and the mark schemes for recording and reporting are then provided in a table. One could use percentages, and here again the formal assessments are provided where 75% of the total mark is made up of a year mark and 25% is made up of exams and for the intermediate phase, and it's broken down into formal assessments, school-based and exams, giving you a total of 100% for the year. And you are welcome to use this mark scheme in preparing your rubrics and your marking memos. And with that, I want to ask you to read up the rest of the curriculum, the CAPS document, and certainly go to the beginning as well for the content on indigenous knowledge and skills. To continue with our PowerPoint, let's look at assessment in a little bit more detail. Why do we assess as teachers? Just to get you thinking, I'd like you to just list down a couple of reasons why you think teachers need to assess their pupils' learning. And I'd like you to make a distinction here between assessment for learning and assessment of learning. Some of the reasons why we assess is to improve knowledge and to build from where we have left off, building on prior knowledge of learners, and scaffolding information in order to increase knowledge. We assess to inform, whether we inform the child about where they are, or parents, or a system, or the school, or us as teachers. Our assessments inform what we do. We assess to improve and to prove that what we have taught has been learned. We assess to test what the learners have taken in, the kind of knowledge and application and higher order thinking that they have been exposed to. And we assess to support our teaching, to see whether diagnostically we have covered the area that we have planned for and where we have to reteach or revise or move on according to how the students have performed. What do we assess? I'd like you to tabulate what you think needs to be assessed. This is quite a controversial area of interaction for teachers. Do we assess to test and teach to the test, or do we assess to broaden a child's knowledge and test to allow children to learn? There are various reasons why, and that would also inform what we assess. So do think about that question when you see this. Some of the things that we assess is the learning outcomes and the goals from the curriculum. We assess pupils' results and the results will inform what we are to assess next. And we assess for different purposes. Among those purposes is for summative reporting purposes, to see at the end of a larger chunk of learning where the child is. And we assess for purposes of formative assessment. This is ongoing, smaller pieces of information that is assessed to build information upon and to scaffold learning. Indigenous knowledge in science. I'd like you to engage in the following activity as you prepare yourself to answer your assignment question, and especially to tackle this part of the curriculum in your classrooms. I'm going to put up two rather engaging quotes. And if you have someone to discuss with at some point, you're welcome to discuss it. Or you can engage in a self-reflective summary of your thoughts. Here are the two quotations. The first one reads, "At the heart of science is an essential balance between two seemingly contradictory attitudes, an openness to new ideas, no matter how bizarre or counterintuitive they may be, and the most ruthless skeptical scrutiny of all ideas, old and new. This is how deep truths are winnowed from deep nonsense." This is what Carl Sagan said in 1997 about science. I quote that from one of our prescribed textbooks, Teaching Primary Science by Loxley et al. The second quote reads, "What has Athens to do with Jerusalem? The academy to do with the church? The heretic to do with the Christian? We have no need for curiosity after Jesus Christ, and no need of investigation after the gospel. Firstly, we believe this, that there is nothing else that we need to believe." These were the words spoken by Augustine in 390 AD. And I quote that also from Loxley et al. On reading those two quotations, I'd like you to look deeply and critically and reason around those two quotes as you ask yourself, what are your thoughts about those two quotations? And in so doing, how would you debate this? Do you think conflicts between religious and scientific beliefs are inevitable? Does one always contradict the other, or is it possible to reconcile both worldviews? This is at the heart of Indigenous knowledge. And do we have to inevitably have conflicts between religion and science, or can they be seen together? Quite a polarized debate, yet one that all mankind is still asking. And then to bring our tutorial to a close, I leave you with a couple of thoughts. I'd like to read two excerpts from two books that I have, but before that, the philosopher-scientists of ancient Greece did not, as a rule, do experiments to help discover knowledge. They spent their time thinking, reading, reasoning, and arguing. Should this be a part of our science lessons? Something for you to think about. And also, just as a further search into this whole question of Indigenous knowledge and science, I have three very informative pieces of writing for you to and something to watch. The first YouTube link is quite a long 45-minute presentation that discusses the role of education in answering this question and looking at this debate. And then Lagrange has written quite an interesting article on integrating Western and indigenous knowledge systems, the basis for effective science education in South Africa. And you can find both of these via Google, and it certainly will also be on Funda. I'd like to end our series of 4 tutorials as we bring to a close our evening. And with this, I would like to invite any questions and comments that you may have. Please feel free to send it through to me via Funda or email. And in conclusion, yet again, an invite to look at the important notes on Funda. Keep the CAPS document close, and Loxley et al. Is the most useful teaching tool in preparation for assignments and for the classroom. Sky is your limit, and what you put in is what you will get out. I'd like to end our tutorial with 2 excerpts. The first one is taken from a book called A Short History of Myths. It's written by a former Catholic nun, and her name is Karen Armstrong. And she says, "The spiritual world is such an immediate and compelling reality that the indigenous peoples believe it must once have been more accessible to human beings. In every culture, we find the myth of a lost paradise in which humans lived in close and daily contact with the divine. They were immortal and lived in harmony with one another, with animals and with nature. At the center of the world there was a tree, a mountain, a pole, linking earth and heaven, which people could easily climb to reach the realms of the gods. Then there was a catastrophe. The mountain collapsed, the tree was cut down, and it became more difficult to reach heaven. The story of the Golden Age, a very early and almost universal myth, was never intended to be historical. It springs from a strong experience of the sacred that is natural to human beings and expresses their tantalizing sense of a reality that is almost tangible and only just out of reach. Most of the religions and mythologies of archaic societies are imbued with longing for the lost paradise. The myth was not simply an exercise in nostalgia. Its primary purpose was to show people how they could return to this archetypal world, not only in moments of visionary rapture, but in the regular duties of their daily lives. Just something to think about when you look at science and mythology. And with that, I want to conclude by a letter written by somebody who wrote to the editor of Joy magazine. It's volume 23 and the 7th issue, where the writer says, "We need to know about Christian scientists." She says, "Every scientific article we read, every documentary we watch, places them at opposite sides of the spectrum, and never the two shall meet, as the likes of astrophysicists such as Neil deGrasse Tyson would have us believe, when really they go hand in hand. It's a frustrating situation that science-loving Christians find themselves in today, when every book, article, or documentary takes subtle and sometimes not so subtle stabs at our belief in the Creator by dismissing him as a ridiculous fairy tale, while trying to convince us that the hypothesis of nothing becoming something, then evolving into millions of other things without being created and guided, is fact, and that this is what we should be indoctrinating our children with in the name of science. We need to see more articles and documentaries of brilliant people who believed differently." That's a letter to the editor that was posted in Joy magazine. And with that, I want to wish you every success for the module. And as you engage in higher order thinking and reasoning, critically evaluating indigenous knowledge. What is science? What is doing science? How do we apply science? And can science and religion actually meet? And in doing so, as you prepare yourself, you are then preparing the best opportunities for your children in your classrooms to engage in curiosities that go far and beyond. And with that, I want to wish you every success for the module, the last assignment, and for the rest of the semester. God bless.